So it wasn't.
Oh, it's on. It's work with the it's blowing my hair out. I got there today. Oh, yeah. So I got
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum tonight. We want to thank everybody who's here. We see some visitors. Thank you for spending a summer evening with us. And if you please stand, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have an invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this gathering. Thank you for all that you do for us. Guide and protect us as we go through our meeting, that we do what's best for our community and our students of this community. We ask this in your Son's name. Amen.
Thank you. And now Charles will read the mission for our school district.
The mission of Gatesville ISD. The mission of Gatesville ISD, a portal to limitless possibilities, is to empower our students to be life-ready, knowledge seekers, and problem solvers by instilling leadership, innovation, integrity, critical thinking, and service through challenging and engaging learning experiences facilitated by passionate teachers and supported by caring parents and community members.
Thank you. All right, now, Dr. Pollard, we have our former educator spotlight, our first Hornet legend.
Yeah, we're going to start a new series. During the fall and spring, we always recognize current teachers and current students, and I thought, well, during the summer, when we don't have huge crowds, it would be so good to be able to honor some former educators. And so we're calling this the Hornet Legend Series, and so we're going to pick some folks that have become institutions in our community. All this makes the person sound old, but that's not the intention. That's not the intention. Dee Dee Powell's going to be our first recipient, and before Dee Dee comes up here, we've got some stuff that, of course, we're going to give you a G and a certificate, but we found some neat stuff. The first thing we found, Marcia found this, was a letter from L.C. McCamey, August 12th, 1971, inviting you to come teach here. But the more interesting thing was how much you got paid that year. You were paid a grand total of $6,300. Your first month, you took home $380.29. But luckily, insurance was only $17.51. So, well, I thought that was really neat. And then I've got a picture here. Let me blow this up a little bit. This is 1985. Now you're going to be able to recognize, well, some of these people here are working here in the district still. There we go. All right. So there's Miss Powell. Miss Powell, do you see anybody familiar there? I'm on the top row right now. And a camouflage t-shirt. I've come a long way. And I think when I emailed this to Dustin Shove, his wife, Liz Dominguez Shove, is front row there, bottom left, with a little dress right here. There's Liz. Liz is probably watching this at home, so she can see she's famous. But that was a fond memory of my kindergarten year. They say you learn everything you need to know your kindergarten year, and that's a lot of truth to that.
It kind of looks like Dina up there.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. Wow. So Dee Dee, you wanted to share your first, like how kindergarten came to be at Gatesville.
We were to start it in 1971. The primary wasn't finished. So 4 times a day, our 62 kids rode the bus with Joanne Donaldson and I. We rode from elementary where their parents brought them to the condemned high school on a rainy park, back to elementary for lunch, back to the old high school, and back to be picked up. But we each had 31 children, and when we moved in primary, our rooms were finished. So we moved in by ourselves for a few weeks, and then finally first and second grade joined us. It was an interesting way to start. They learned how to ride a bus.
Well, Dee Dee has taught generations of kids. When there's so many people that say, oh, who taught you kindergarten? Oh, Miss Powell. And to this day, Miss Powell sends me a Christmas card every December. And so that just goes to show the type of character she has and commitment to kids. And if everybody was as good as Dee Dee Powell, we'd be in good shape. And you've got a good team here that came to support you. So Dee Dee, we want you to come forward, get your picture, get a certificate. We can get an applause for Dee Dee. Dee Dee had 33 years at Gatesville from 71 to 04, but then she came back in 08 and was a substitute for more years. Because when I came back, Miss Powell was doing a long-term sub in first grade. All those years later, 2015 or 16. And so we're so proud of you, Dee Dee. So I want you to take a picture with the whole crew here, but we can take some, you want to come up here and we'll get your picture and I'll get you your pay sheet as a fond memory. So.
A pay cut to come here.
A pay cut to come here?
Yeah, $300 from Austin.
Oh, wow. Are we good? Okay. Dee Dee, congratulations. You want to say anything else?
Thank you, thank you. No, I wanted to thank my friends and kindergarten teachers.
Yeah.
Thank them for coming.
It's a good crew.
They say what happens in kindergarten stays in kindergarten.
That's right, that's right.
She's a good charter legend.
And now if y'all would all stay.
Thanks for coming.
I'm out of here.
They're all going to LTAP.
You should have done that last. Where's the party?
Okay. Moving on, is there anyone here who would like to be in the public comments? Anybody signed up, Marcia?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, anybody out there? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there questions about the consent agenda? Is there a motion that we accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? David, thank you. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And we will start on our information items with Dr. Pollard in the tennis court.
Well, I wanted to give everybody an update on our tennis courts. They have, it's been a long time since they've had any attention as far as upkeep and resurfacing and things of that nature. So we wanted to kind of provide some information. We've been getting some quotes from various vendors, about 5 in fact, and we've looked back in our our records. I think, Daryl, it was 16 years ago was the last time that we had something done to the courts. And so that was the last time they were resurfaced. And they recommend that you resurface them about once every 8 years. And so we feel like it's time. There's some cracks and things of that nature. So we called together a big committee of folks, some local, of course we had Wendell, our tennis coach, and Miss Tatum, our assistant, and then we got Glenn Vernon and Sue, some local tennis pros, basically semi-pro tennis players that play up there all the time. And they agreed it was time for some the cracks to be filled in. There's divots and things of that nature. And Dobbs, the company that did it last time, by all accounts did a fantastic job. And so Dobbs was kind of the front runner in the fact that we know their work. The rest of them, we really didn't know their work. And fortunately, Dobbs also had, by far, the most affordable quote. And so we were very pleased that they came in with the cheapest rate. And so we've learned more about tennis courts than we ever wanted to know. You're supposed to have a medium fast court, a number 3. We're going to paint it blue with green trim. That is the new kind of the hot thing. It's where they do the US Open, I believe. It's blue with green. It looks really good. We've seen pictures of it. And so Ms. Tatum and Wendell are very excited about the prospect of getting it resurfaced and taken care of. It should take 9 to 12 days, weather permitting, and there's a surface guarantee for 1 year against peeling, chalking, and bonding failures. And we're also going to put up a bunch of signs to make sure once we do it, the kids don't come up there with their bikes, skateboards, roller skates, any sort of shoe other than a tennis shoe, because we don't want that paint to be damaged. And so that's kind of the update of where we're at right now. The Dobbs gentleman felt like that it could be done pretty quickly, and this hot summer month is a good time to do it. And so the tennis program, I know, is excited about the prospect of having it done. Do y'all have any questions about it?
So they'll do repairs to the cracks and the divots and?
Yes, they fill it with like a acrylic. What is it, Scott? They fill it with? It's some sort of epoxy type thing.
Yeah, they'll grind out the cracks and then they'll fill that in, and then they put 2 coats of layers on top of it. And so it should last us another, hopefully 16 years.
You call it a paint, is it a coating or is it a material they put down?
I think it's a painting. And there's, the first thing they do is they flood it with water, and they look for what they call bird baths, low spots that form puddles. And so they fill those, they fill all the hairline cracks and everything, and they said they can't guarantee the cracks will never come back. And I've always heard that if a concrete person tells you it won't crack, they're lying to you, because concrete cracks is what it does. But they're confident that they can keep it looking good, and the tennis court themselves are still in good shape in the sense that they're not like the give and that sort of thing is still good. And so, but they need some protection and some upkeep on the spider cracks and different things like that to keep them in good shape.
The top layer they add sand to for the speed of the court.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again.
The top layer, they add sand to it for the speed of the court.
Oh, sand.
Sand.
So if you fall, it takes height off.
It'll wear your shoes down depending on how much
So
they
you
put
run
in.
fast.
Well, like the Australian is a slower surface than the US. They play,
Mhm.
have different grit on those 2 surfaces, yeah. Thank you.
So that has been, I think, an area of the district that's been kind of maybe overlooked for several years, and so we felt like it was time to protect those courts before they got any worse off. So
How many square feet is that roughly, do you know?
there's 8 tennis courts, and they'll do them all at once. That was another thing that we were wanting to do it all at once in one fell swoop to get it done.
And that's just information only. We don't need
Since it's
to-
under 50,000.
Any more questions? Okay, moving on to the campus daily start and end times for the new school year.
Another just kind of informational item that just want to keep everyone in the loop, and we'll share this with parents. The only change to the start and end times would be a 5-minute earlier start at the high school and junior high. And so those two have done a lot of work to get on the same schedule, to where their bell schedules are right on time with each other. And so when one moves, the other needs to move also. And that extra 5 minutes will kind of come into play during the middle of the day when they have interventions to kind of help alleviate some time restraints there. And so not a big change, but we thought we'd let everyone know and kind of start getting the word out that everything's the same except junior high and high school 5 minutes earlier.
Are those tardy bell times or?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 7:55?
Any questions about start date? Any time? Start time? All right, we'll go on to the end of year assessment update with Dr. Pollard and Mr. Will.
We wanted to do that a little bit differently this time. We feel like our assessments, I feel like they're becoming a little bit stagnant. After you've done the same type of assessment over and over again, we really want to evaluate, are they beneficial? We always have to weigh the amount of instructional time it takes to do the testing. And so we're going to continue a lot of different testing next year as far as like the VAS, the one where we do the literacy. But we wanted to give the teachers a reprieve during the middle of the year to where they won't do the middle of the year testing. So you'll do beginning and ending. And then the E-Star, M-Star math assessment, I've surveyed the staff, and it's a good assessment. They can take it if they want to give it to their students, but we're not going to mandate it. And so that would be a test that they'll get some time back. And then finally, the STAR interim assessments are a practice STAR that the state gave districts the option of using, but we've been disappointed in the type of results you get back. They don't really break it down in a beneficial manner. And so
it can be difficult to pull.
Yeah.
You have to go click on each individual student, and it kind of lets you know where the percentage the the chances they have to get approaches, meets, or masters, and it just really doesn't tell you a whole lot.
So I emailed the teachers and basically proposed to them, we'll give you back middle of year BAS, E-Star, M-Star, STAR interim. In return, you give us one full-blown STAR benchmark in February, where you give us a release STAR test from last year, administer it to the students, we'll put it in Aware, break it down, and go from there. And so we feel like that assessment data would be a lot more beneficial. So we'll still come to you with reading levels, but we'll have a little bit different, we'll have a better projection, I think, to prepare us for the real STAR from giving that full-blown release test in February. It still gives us enough time if a student does poorly on certain sections, they can have time to intervene. And Shane also has one chart here for you, because that one cohort that we've been monitoring, or the one that we started out with that was struggling quite a bit with their reading back in fifth grade. And Shane, you want to talk about it?
That group that ended the year, fifth grade, we had 60% of them reading below grade level. And as we've kind of moved through, those guys are now entering high school as a freshman. And so you can kind of see the trend. They went from 60% in fifth grade to 46% in sixth grade to 24% in seventh grade, and they're down to 12% now here at the end of eighth grade.
And we're going to test the end of year BAS a little bit earlier, because the grades that have to give a STAR test, the month of May, they're just reading tests, STAR tests, all the other end of the year stuff. And so the feedback we got from the teachers when we proposed this was they were ecstatic, basically. They said it'll work much better, and it will give them some instructional time back, and it gives us a little bit better testing data. And so we're thinking it will be a good plan for next year.
So you feel like this is better for the teachers and the kids? The kids
I think so.
mainly, yeah. Good.
Because they've gotten to where, the BAS can take a lot of time, can take some class time. And it may not be as difficult for a second grade teacher that has 22 kids, but when you're a sixth grade teacher that may have 60 or 70 kids, or a junior high teacher that could have 80 to so kids, it takes a lot of time to administer these reading assessments. So, and as long as they're doing like a running record, and they're utilizing their guided reading groups and getting a running record that they know where their kids' reading levels are throughout the year, then they don't really as much need that middle of the year test to know where that kid is performing.
So we'll still be able to come to you and show you growth from beginning to end of year in reading, the early math inventory, the TIMI. We can show you probably the February STAR benchmarks, kind of give you an idea of where they're headed on the STAR test. And so it'll just be a little bit different combination of testing.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good move. Sounds great. And Mr. Frazier with a budget update.
Good evening, board. Good to see each one of you. This is just a preview of what our 2019-2020 budget is going to look like. Not quite a week ago, the governor signed House Bill 3 into law, and a lot of work from both sides of the Congress has gone into that bill. And the teacher raises was really one of the big hot topics that was in that process, as well as taxes. You'll be glad to know that finally we're getting a break on the taxes. Our taxes next year will be 97 cents. They've already told us what our tax rate's going to be. So it's going to go down from 104 M&O to 97, which is a 7-cent decrease. So I know many of you have expressed an interest in seeing our tax rates go down. They're going to go down. So in August, when we set those tax rates, we already know what that's going to be at this point. And that's the 97 cents. So it's about a reduction of $500,000 in the local tax levy, and the state will be making that up through the state funding, the loss in our local taxes. So aside from that, we're projecting about a $2 million increase in our state funding as a result of the decisions that the legislature has made. And they've made some stipulations about the salaries. The Senate had really, for quite a while, had insisted on a $5,000 across-the-board raise for teachers. You've heard that many, many times. And then the House side wanted to give more leeway for school districts to determine how they were going to allocate funds to salary increases. And so the compromise came out like this. You take your increase in your state funding, in our case it will be about $2 million, and they want you to use 30% of that, which is about $600,000, for raises for full-time employees except administrators. And of that 30%, 75%, they want to go toward teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses. And on the teacher side, they want it focused especially on years 6 and up, anybody with over 5 years of experience. Of course, the minimum salary scale has come out, and now they issued that on Tuesday by TEA. And the minimum salary scale is a scale 1 to 20, has 20 steps. Our teacher salary scale has 30 steps, so we have 10 steps more than the TEA salary scale. And many districts also have 30 or more steps. But the 20 steps hadn't been changed in quite a while from the TEA. And you know, like in our case, we were about 6,000 above state on our teacher scale, and other districts were maybe below that. The districts could have been above that, some quite significantly above. But the scale has now kind of caught up with us. They put through about a 20% increase in the scale, the minimum scale, for next year. And so that's almost catching up with what our scale is, and actually goes above it in some instances. The average raise in order to meet the requirements of the scale would be about 9%, which is what I had put into my narrative here. And we are studying the scale, the new scale. We're studying their requirements, and along with what might be best for GISD. And we will no doubt very soon have a special meeting of the board to present to you the management's recommendations as far as their teacher scale and other scales for next year. So we're kind of behind the 8 ball. This really drives a lot of the budget, the personnel does, and so we're anxious to get all of this settled and approved by you, the board, so that we can move on with the rest of our budget. So far on the, okay, I had it in 9%, and I was estimating $1.25 million of that $2 million will be used for salary increases. And then I have shared with you the campus budgets right here in your board book. So as far as where we are, here's the overall appropriations that we work at. And so all these rows have got to be filled in before we present a final budget. So these are, at this point, we got all 5 campuses have their budget all presented and approved by the admin office, and they represent about a 2% increase overall from all 5 campuses. Some of them a little less, some of them a little more. If the high school was a little more, maybe 11,000. A lot of that has to do with the CATE program, putting more money into the career and tech. And at junior high, a little bit, about 3,000, 4,000 up, was mostly for curriculum and professional development, which is a good place to invest in your teachers. So that's kind of a snapshot of the campus budgets. And so now we're going to work on getting the rest of these budgetary areas finished and submitted and presented to you. We'll keep you advised along throughout the summer on how we're progressing with our budget. But this is definitely an exciting year. People are wondering about raises. All it says is there will be raises, and they will be significant. How much, we don't know yet, but there will be raises, and the legislature wanted to take care of teachers this year and other full-time employees of school districts, and our teachers will be treated accordingly. Any questions about the preliminary budget, the tax decrease?
The 2 main things that Daryl and I have talked about is that, one, we want everyone to get a raise, whether they're a bus driver, a cafeteria worker, whatever, because I couldn't think of a more demoralizing thing is everybody else gets a raise and I'm doing X, Y, Z and I didn't get anything. That's number 1. Number 2 is that we want to build the budget to where everything's included in it, whether it be 2 buses or whatever big items, to where we're not coming back 6 months later, well, here's the fund balance amendment. We want to get it all in there to where that would be a last ditch to have to use the fund balance. And so we've just got to plan and think about everything we're going to need to use this coming year and try to get it all together.
You know, our teachers, about half our staff, so we still have about 200. We'll have another 200 to help keep the district running as well. And they're also very important. So we, like you indicated, want to make sure that we do what's appropriate for all of our staff members this year.
So would that 9% be everybody like 9%,
Teachers.
or most, or just the teachers, and then the other employees will?
Well, we're not sure at this
decided.
point.
Okay.
Yeah. But in order to meet the mandates, it's going to take about a 9% increase for the teachers on the teacher side.
Okay.
I know that base, I was at a workshop and they went over that base salary chart. There are some significant changes.
Significant
And
changes.
more so as you go down toward 20 also. It
Yeah.
really steps up.
Yeah, like I say, they hadn't raised that thing in quite a few years.
No.
And it was behind the times, and most districts were paying significantly above the state minimum. Now I would assume probably many districts are going to be paying minimum, more of them anyway, because the minimum went up so much. And the idea of not having to produce fund balance amendments is probably something that should please the board. I know we'd like to get a good budget up front, everything in there. So we have to come back later and say, oh, we didn't do a good job on this,
That's
we
a
need
real
some
good
more money
idea.
on fund balance. So that's what he's talking about, so. You know, as long as we do our homework up front and get you a really good budget, that should lessen the need for fund balance amendments. We will continue to have those for the high school renovation, obviously, because that's going to be an ongoing thing for a couple of years. And you'll continue to see those. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes,
I
sir,
hate to
David.
I hate to be the one to ask the question.
Oh, no.
So the state's gonna chip in a pretty good bit of money this year.
Mhm.
For how many years do we feel like they will they stop that and then we're left with maintaining the,
They actually built it into the
Increase.
basic
Yeah.
allotment, so the way it's funded, it's going to be permanent.
That's what they covered also, because that
Mhm.
very question came up.
Good.
Is this gonna be 2 and done? You know, are we
We
doing this
know
for
it
the
is.
biennium and
Yeah.
the group? But yeah, they changed the allotment formula. They're going to
Good.
calculate.
Yeah, so it wasn't like a supplementary payment of some sort, you know, to cover the additional. They actually increased that amount, that funding amount.
that's excellent.
So that's
But David, you're
permanent.
right, before they did that, we were very concerned about that.
Yeah, because they've done that before, you know.
Yeah, they've done things like that before, give
Oh,
you
yeah.
money for a couple of years and then cut you off, and we gotta keep going because we give you a raise, you can't take a raise back.
That's a good question.
So that's comforting.
Yes. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Good news. Action items. Marcia, Employee Assistance Program?
Y'all may be way more educated than I was on this, but I had never heard of an employee assistance program. And each year, Mr. Frazier and Mackenzie, who helps with benefits, we meet with Don Crook, who is over our benefits administrator, CBG, and look at the programs and kind of look what's going to go up based on what bids they've gotten in. And typically everything goes up some, except last month Mr. Frazier said some insurance went down.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we commented on is the district approved district provided life insurance policy that the district does provide for every staff member. And I have, in exit interviews when I'm talking to people, I always try to remind them of that, but it does sound, now remember, you have life insurance until August. That kind of makes you feel like, ooh, you know. So anyway, Don talked about this employee assistance program, and I don't know, Mr. Frazier, you may have known more. I just said, tell me more about that. He talked about the cost, and I provided that. I don't know how many of y'all had time to look at this. Alliance Work Partners is the company that they have contracted with. And it's one that if you look through the brochure, a lot of the departments, the state government departments utilize this. It's separate from an insurance company, which I thought was really good. They also provided, and I don't know if you had time since y'all were out in San Antonio, but they did have a video that we could use to train. And a lot of these companies that do this are tied to insurance. And so it might be a provider of the insurance that there's a tie there. But this is a company that's totally independent, and they're the largest independent one of the largest in the nations. And so they provide things to the employee like short-term counseling. It's all where we would never know who called to get help. And people can call for financial, for personal counseling, to get information about things, and it's just something that can kind of insurance for the living is the way they said it. How can we help the employees that we have, and supposedly help with attendance, help possibly with the type of work that they're doing while they're here, and they've seen quite a return with this type of program in helping the employees just function in the workplace. They do have, if you looked at the end, there are some premium things you can add on. I called Don back and asked him about that, and he said none of his school districts did those premium services, but you can call for help, you can get legal issues, you can actually have up to 6 sessions of short-term counseling, and that's never goes to your insurance. And then if you still need help with any type of issue, they will help you find a counselor that's in your insurance network, but none of that is ever reported. So they do provide training to employees, so employees know of that benefit. And we just looked at it and looked at the cost, and we had just ordered safety hammers for everybody, and I said, that's a safety hammer when you start thinking about that. But there are times in my life or my kids' life, this is available for employees and all family members living in the household, and that I can think, you know, that could have been helpful. So you can get information on child care, on elderly care. It's just someone that's 24 hours at your service, and then they will set up face-to-face counseling fees as well. And that's all something that we should never know who's getting that benefit, except they will let us know if anyone's using it or not, which would be something that I think we would want to know. But we looked at that, and I thought insurance for the living is a pretty good way to think about that, that we want to provide something that will help our employees just to function in normal life with all of the ins and outs of everyday life. Do y'all have any questions?
The videos seem like a huge resource for people, and it's 24 hours a day, so at 10 o'clock when you're thinking about something, and you could easily call and get some
And marital
information.
problems, all sorts of issues that I thought it was good. If you are somewhere and you have to get an Uber or a Lyft ride, they will reimburse you if it's something that will be safety for the employee. So I just think there are a lot of good things in there. I've never participated in anything like that, but I just thought for the price, would it be something that we could offer our employees that might be helpful?
I like it covers all the family members.
Yeah.
So that's what you need.
And it does cover up to 6 months even after separation, so.
Those extra additional costs, that's not something that a person could pay on her own or his own above what the school district pays.
He did not
If they
price
wanted-
it that way. This came just as a quote from them. I did look at that for 449 people. That's $2.37 a piece. It would come out to $1,000, about $1,000 a month, and would come out to $12,770 for all of those.
For
Now,
everything.
and that includes some kind of like a teledoc. There's some fitness help and some other things, but Don just said he did not have many of the schools that utilize that, so I don't know anything about it, but he did highly recommend and said people had liked this, so.
Any questions?
So, I recommend that we accept the proposal of AWP through Combined Benefits Group to provide the Employee Assistance Program to all employees at the district's expense of approximately $8,700 beginning September 1.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Okay. Motion's been made, seconded. Any questions?
This is a 1 year.
Yes, it
So
is.
it's not
And
a
you can get
long-term
out,
contract
you
or
can
anything.
get out with 90 days notice of any time, and so you're not wanting to do that is what the program said.
Or say the info comes back in and no one's
No
utilizing.
one's used it, yeah. And I would think we wouldn't want to spend money if no
Yeah.
one's utilizing it, but a lot of it is they do provide someone to come and help train the employees about that free of charge with this. So, to me, if it can help 4 or 5, whatever, any of them, is just to know that we all had that, information available to us.
And if it passes, we need to advertise it probably
Yes.
throughout the year to remind them.
Mhm.
And the teachers get something every, I think it was 3 weeks, some little email
Uh-huh.
about it, what's available and how to use certain things.
Right. All right.
Anybody else?
Like good deal.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Oh, no, we spend some of this. Okay, Dr. Pollard.
All right, well, the next one is kind of we're trying to start building our roadmap for the next school year and beyond, and so I tweaked the vision slightly. There's a couple of visuals here past this board agenda sheet. The first one being our vision, kind of our pyramid, and I tweaked 2 of the 3 things are still the same, but I made this bottom part of the pyramid safety. And so we didn't originally have that here, and I feel like with everything going on in the world and locally and just everything, we need to really focus on safety and kids treating each other with respect, and that being kind of the foundation that we really look at the coming school year and beyond. And then a couple of little tweaks. Here we had literacy development, but I added STEAM also for the students, meaning the sciences, technology. They get some engineering now, the fine arts, mathematics, not just reading, but all the core subjects and beyond with the fine arts as well. Ultimately, to make it culminate in them being college, career, military ready. So when you graduate, you're going to be ready for a job, Army, whatever it may be. And so just a slight tweak there as far as the vision. And then in looking at the portrait of a graduate, again, I didn't make any substantive changes to that. I streamlined it to add a couple of things here. You probably remember this document, but I wanted to add one thing here. Under contributing member of society, I wanted this sound financial decisions. I wanted kids to learn about, making a checkbook, renting versus owning versus leasing, and just all those different types of things, credit card scores and payments and interest and different things. And so a lot of our courses focus on that, but I wanted to put it in our portrait of a graduate just to make an added emphasis to it. And then I added one other thing here, this technologically literate. We didn't really have a lot on technology in here, and so I wanted our kids, when they leave here, to have a pretty basic understanding of search engines and discerning reliable information versus stuff that's phony. That would be another key thing. And also just your basic Word, Excel, PowerPoint. They need to leave here at least knowing a little bit of that to where they've had some exposure. And that'll make them successful whether they go to work immediately or go to college or even in the military. They use those pretty extensively. So made those two tweaks there. And then the third document is kind of in our management team, our principals and our central office, these are the 6 things that I wanted us to really focus on. Of course, there's 6 big umbrellas, but safety, discipline, and attendance being the first one, followed by the literacy, followed by making sure we're still giving the teachers good professional development. We talked a little bit already about assessment and then intervening with kids that are doing poorly, not forgetting about CTE, all those different strands that we've worked so steadfastly on. And then finally, just good communication. That's probably one of the things that we hear the most is, well, we sure wish that there was better communication. That's one of those things you just always have to improve upon. And so we want that to be, one of the major facets too. So that's kind of the roadmap or the beginning of what we're looking at here as far as next year and beyond. And so did y'all have any questions or concerns about those couple of tweaks or ideas?
Looks good.
So my recommendation is that the board approve the updated vision and the portrait of a graduate. And that's those two documents we just looked at. This being the portrait of the graduate, which is a little bit streamlined. It added those 2 things. And then the vision being this pyramid of ideas.
Okay, we've heard that. You want to make the motion for the recommendation, Linda? Seconded, Rob. Any more questions or comments? Thanks for doing that. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Well, anytime you tweak a document, then it's a vicious cycle because the document's embedded in 1,000 different places. And so we had to make a motion then to change the wording that you just did. We need to change that then in AE local. So I recommend that the board adopt the changes we just presented in AE local due to the updated portrait of a graduate. And so it's basically the same thing.
So, but we need to make a motion.
We
need a recommendation. David, is there a second?
Yes.
John, any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you.
And the last place it was found that we know of was in the District of Innovation Plan. And I didn't touch anything in the District of Innovation Plan other than just tweaking where the portrait of the graduate is. And so it's been a while since you guys maybe have even looked at the District of Innovation Plan, but the first page or so is the portrait. And so again, I didn't touch anything else or really even review it to make any other changes at this time. But I'd make the recommendation that the board approve the changes presented in the District of Innovation Plan due to the updated portrait of a graduate.
Is there a motion for that recommendation?
I make a motion.
Charles, and is there a second? Linda, any more questions?
How much time do we have the initial
Minutes?
no, the campus of
District
District
Innovation.
District of Innovation, yeah.
Yes, the
That was a
district.
5-year deal when it was Is that correct?
I think that's right.
You know when that,
When it expires, I'll have to look it up and see when we first adopted this.
About 3 years ago.
Yeah. So we're about midway through it, I think.
Any more questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Are we up for minimum grade requirements?
Yes, I kind of have a typo here. When I think of no pass, no play, I always think of athletes, and that's really a misnomer. It's all extracurriculars, and so for years we've been presenting a list of advanced courses that we said were exempt from no pass, no play. And so we met with teachers, and it was unanimous. They felt like that the students in those courses can be held to at least a 60, to where you're not going to just fail it utterly and completely, that you at least make a 60. And so I did speak with Coach Cooper and some others that have a hand in kids. They're in extracurriculars, and so if I am a student athlete and I'm in AP whatever, I need to make at least a 60 in order to play. And so Coach Cooper didn't see any issues with that. The teachers felt like that was a good minimum requirement, not letting them just fail it again utterly and totally. And so we've got the list of classes that would apply to. And again, that was kind of a misstatement on my part to say just student athletes. It's really for all students who are in extracurriculars that are UIL related, that are under the no pass, no play doctrine. And so did y'all have any questions about what we're doing here tonight? So
What does that do to them as far as receiving credit with the school? Do they have to have a 70, or is it 60 they pass the course?
well, under those systems, typically you need to have a 60 because they add the 10 points to get it up to a 70. So like if I'm in an AP course, it's a 5.0 scale, basically.
And if I recall correctly, I mean, the original intent when this rule was put in place was so that you weren't dissuading students from taking those advanced classes so they could stay eligible to participate in their extracurricular.
Right. So we're hoping that this is kind of a happy medium. If I'm an athlete or I'm in something UIL related to where I want to take an AP course, but I might be a little bit afraid of how tough it's going to be, I know that, well, surely I can at least make a 60. And so we don't want the kids to just think, well, I can just go in there and make a 40, a 30, a 20, and be done. And so the teachers, coaches, they felt like it was a very sensible standard to set.
So instead of just student athletes,
It's everyone.
UIL.
So my recommendation then would be that the board approve the proposal that students maintain a minimum of a 60 average in all advanced courses to be considered passing with regard to the UIL no pass no play. So just take out that word athletes, basically.
And so UIL's okay with that?
Yes.
It works with them.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? John, second? David? Any more questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now we are, GISD's substance abuse policy, Mr. Harper.
This past year, we revamped our substance abuse policy, which is our drug testing policy. We've gone a long time without a review, and so now we want this to become part of a yearly thing. At the end of the year, we look at our programs. The substance abuse policy is one that we will look at and see that we're still covering the scope that we need to be covering and still accomplishing what we want to accomplish as a deterrent. And so at the review, we did expand the scope, and you have the changes that were put out that should be in orange in your copy. We did expand the scope to include more extracurricular and co-curricular. We're increasing our CAPE pathways, and so that's one of the reasons for the expansion. And then also distinguishing between FFA, those that represent the school, and those that just take the course for a grade. This is about extracurricular, co-curricular, representing the school, and something more than just taking the class. And so that designation was made. So a lot of the orange is about clarifying. It was about increasing the scope of students that we're testing. And we also wanted to add the School Community Guidance Center to be a more part of this from the very beginning. In the old policy, this past year policy, you had 3 strikes, before you lose your UIL eligibility. Well, with the first strike, you had an interview and you met with the social worker to see if there were some underlying problems, and we made recommendations to the parents. And then the second strike, we offered here a list for the parent to go out and get some more counseling and set that up. We want to start that with strike 1, because the student needs that support whenever they are discovered to have, dabbled in drugs. They're going to start losing their opportunities to perform and to be a part of that support group with their team. And so we've got to be able to support them through it, and then hopefully get them to change the way that they're doing things. And so we'll hopefully get them involved in the School Community Guidance Center, because as they progress through, if we get to strike 3, then they fall out from the policy, and then we have no accountability for those students. And so this way, if they get to strike 3, they stay under the School Community Guidance Center. We can continue testing them, we can continue counseling, and we don't have a student that just decides, I'd rather do drugs than extracurricular. And so that part was put in there to be a part of the process early on, just to keep that accountability piece going. I did add some of the numbers here about our testing and some of the results and how much we did spend on the testing. It's going to be a little bit more next year because we are increasing the scope of our testing. But I recommend the approval of the GISD substance abuse policy as presented with the recommended changes.
So the estimated cost is $18,000.
Yes, sir. We spent $16,570 this year.
One thing I told Scott was kind of hard to quantify the amount of kids that maybe it deters from doing something because they know they're going to be tested. And so, although it didn't catch a lot of students, it may have discouraged a lot from not doing it to begin with, which is good.
We want to give them a reason to say no, to separate themselves from situations that might fall into a trap.
Is there a motion for this recommendation? Linda, and a second? I'll second. Any more questions?
This is random, not...
Well, we do a baseline. So the whole group is tested at the beginning of the year, and then after that it's random.
That's what I was kind of understanding. I want to make sure.
Any more? All those in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hartman.
Mr. Whalen.
All right.
There you
Well,
go.
before I begin with the EMT part, I want to bring a few people up. Helen Monday, Sylvia Farrell, and Ms. Moore from the Meadows. And these guys are, we started our health science program. We're going into our 3rd year. And in our health science program, we have the CNA, the Certified Nurses Assistant Program. And these guys have partnered with us going into next year. The Gatesville ISD has an application in with Texas Health and Human Services. I think it's where application's through. And so, but you have to have a clinical site to partner with. And so the Meadows has graciously agreed to help us with our CNA program. And you have to have, there are certain requirements. You have to have a director of nursing, a nurse director. You have to have your teacher has to have certain qualifications. And so it's not just anybody on our staff that has those qualifications that can meet that. So Ms. Farrell has graciously agreed to be our director of nursing for our CNA program, that Ms. Cummings, along with Ms. Inbody, are teaching that CNA class. So the first semester, those kids spend learning their skills in class, and then the second semester, they will go to the Meadows and they will actually do actual clinicals. And then sometime into April, first part of May, they will take their CNA examination to become a certified nursing assistant. And so I just wanted to recognize these guys for agreeing to partner with us. And we just went through our first year of the CNA program, and we had 15 of the 17 students that have passed their tests so far, and 4 of them currently have a CNA job. So I just wanted to recognize these guys and tell them thank you for the partnership that we've been able to create. We look for great success.
Very exciting.
And I think right now, tell me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sanderson, I think there's 31 kids enrolled in the class this year.
There are.
Going into this next year.
31 jobs.
All right.
And so you don't think about it, but you know, I'm trying to remember, how many do you guys, CNAs, do you guys keep on staff just at the Meadows?
Well, through the hospital, throughout Coryell Health, there's 588 employees.
Right.
With clinics and all that. And plus we've got home health and there's hospice out here, so there's a lot of need for the
So there's a major need for, between the hospital,
Qualified.
Hillside, you know, I know Hillside employs 45 CNAs on staff at one time, so it's a instant job for any of our kids that receive that certification, so.
And Sylvia's an RN, so you have to have an RN to promote the program.
For a little while. I've been
She's
going
in good
for a
for a
little
little bit. Poor lady. But I just wanted to recognize these guys and thank them for
You're welcome.
for the partnership that we've been able to create. So.
And it's great that we have this opportunity to help the community, to help the kids in Gatesville, because it gives them an opportunity to get a feeling of this is what they really want to do, that they want to go on and complete that, or is they like, nah, maybe I don't want to do this after all, and save the community some money and save mom and dad some money too. So, you know, because that's a long road to hoe. You get down at the end and you decide, no, this isn't what I want to do, then, you know, it's hard on everybody. So we appreciate, all of us, the opportunity to do this for the
We
kids
also
at
offer,
Gatesville.
at Coryell, we offer tuition reimbursement too. So for those students who come on and work, you know, they are going to continue to go on to college, can apply for some type of tuition assistance, so.
So if they want to be an anesthesiologist later and go, they can come and get tuition assistance. So it doesn't have to be an RN. Just introduces them to taking care of people.
And you all do it well. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to recognize these guys tonight and just kind of let you see a face, just some of the things that we're doing with that program. So.
Yeah, and we're now called Rehab Living.
Rehab living at the
At the
Meadows.
Meadows.
Yes.
We can't drop the Meadows yet. Nobody will know who we
No,
are.
I don't know. All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
y'all. All right. So my next group is. All right. So we've been in the process of trying to figure out how to start an EMT certification program, and we think we're finally here. Dr. Sanderson and myself met with Heather and Dustin and Jeff Mincy of Coryell Health EMS a few months ago, and looking at what we needed to do to start an EMT certification program. And so after Heather's worked with us to get some approvals, and we've been approved by the state to start an EMT certification program. And so we would like to partner with Coryell Health EMS, and I'm going to ask Heather and Dustin if you guys will stand up. This is Heather Reeder. She's the Director of Education for Coryell Health EMS, and this is Dustin Terrell. And Heather is will kind of oversee our program. Dustin will be I guess the professor, the teacher of the class, with help from Heather and maybe even some of the other Coryell EMS staff that may come in and help teach different skills, and so I guess what I'm asking. Well, I guess, does anybody have any questions before we go any further about an EMT certification program?
How many hours is it now?
150 hours.
150.
And 150, in addition, or that includes clinical hours. So they have to do 48 hours on the ambulance and 24 in the ER. So I think we figured it out. What's the school year? 170.
We have about 173 days.
So they'll actually get above what the minimum requirement is.
And that's the regular curriculum for anywhere, what you're doing with these kids.
It'll be a double block class. See, Heather, they run an EMT certification program at their place, and so we would just be offering it now here at the high school. And so how it would, we would have a memorandum of understanding, just kind of letting what everybody's roles are within the program. And there will be a cost, this wouldn't be considered a dual credit class, but it would be like a dual credit class. And so there would be a cost to the students. We would have some startup costs to begin with. I figured out approximately about $2,000, give or take. And then purchasing books, we would purchase the books for the kids. That way it would make the cost a little bit cheaper, and then the kids would just check out the books each year. And we would like to contribute $100 a semester per kid, like we do on a dual credit class with any other student. And so that would bring the cost down to about $640 a year, which is about $320 a semester. And so that's kind of where we are right now. So we're just trying to make sure we have everything that we need. That'll be, we'll get this. This will be next. And then I have some other good news. So, does anybody have any questions about the EMT certification program that we are going to hold at the high school? And hopefully, eventually, when the hospital is done, it may be an easier transition to maybe hold these classes in the future at the hospital.
How many kids do you have signed up?
I'm trying to remember, it's 10 kids right now signed up for first year.
And that's, what'd you say, a 2-hour class?
It's a double block class, yes, sir, so it'd be about an hour and a half class.
And what age do they have to be?
They have to be a senior.
Senior.
And they have to have had biology, and they have to have had anatomy and physiology, or concurrently enrolled in anatomy and physiology. Now this is most of the kids in it are in the health science program, but we didn't that wasn't a prerequisite to be in the health science program. We wanted to open it up to any senior as long as they meet that biology, anatomy, physiology requirement.
Is this a popular enough class that there would be a CTE pathway at some point in time in the future?
This isn't the health science CTE pathway.
Okay.
So these kids that would be taking this class, we would call it would be practicum of health science is what we would code it.
Okay.
It's like their capstone.
It would be their capstone. But like I said, we have some seniors that may not be in the health science
So
pathway that would take.
How does that work in where you charge them, where you're charging the student? This is kind of different from anything we've done.
It's like a dual credit class, so our kids pay to take a dual credit class now. We contribute $100 per class a semester, and so typically her classes are $900, but that's including books. We're going to pay for the books, which were about $60. So we're getting down to $840, and we would like to contribute $100 per class, like we do with a dual credit class. And so a kid that graduates and has their EMT certification can go get a job making $30,000 a year to start it out.
Yeah, it's a very good pathway for students who want to consider medical school. It's something that actually helps them get into medical school when they've practiced as an EMT. Because a lot of schools now, PA school, medical school, want to see that real life experience, that have you gone in the field and worked. And EMS, there's a lot of growth in EMS. They could go on to paramedic school, be a paramedic before they're 20 years old. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there getting in the high school like that. So it's great for them. It's great. I can do my job, be a teacher.
Yes, they do have to.
Hands-on ambulance ride out here, or to go somewhere else to do it?
So they'll be able to do it here, or they'll be able to do it with Copperas Cove Fire. That'll be up to them and the parents how they want to sign up. But that gives them the opportunity to get.
We will have a mandatory parent and student meeting prior to the school year, because when they start their clinicals, you never know what they might see when they're riding on an ambulance. So, there may be some support that they need after they go on some rides or something.
We also met last time about the training that the ambulance crew will go on. If they get to a scene and it's a scene that one of our kids doesn't need to see, there's procedures in that they can go through. I thought that was really interesting, the forethought they put into that.
Yeah, that is good. That is good.
So, I guess I'm recommending the Board of Trustees approve the EMT certification program and the memorandum of understanding for for the Cornell Health EMT certification program so that Gatesville High School students may take advantage of this.
Good recommendation. John and Rob, any more questions?
Books from IMA, I guess.
CTE.
See, okay.
We've got some CT funds that we still got to spend. So.
And they would be, you said that they'd check them out and then next year use those, that sort of information stays for a couple of years, but then there are changes, so we might
Yeah,
have to
she
find.
thinks maybe maybe we have to replace books maybe every 4 or 5 years.
Oh, okay.
No,
That's
not bad
good.
at all.
We're trying to look at a way to make it to not be so costly to the student.
Right.
So if there is a student that struggles or needs help, we don't want to make it a deterrent or a hindrance.
Okay.
Is Cole doing this program, or anybody else we know of local?
Some of the other schools may be doing a dual credit program through like CTC, but you know it's for us it comes down to we have a partnership with Cornell Health and being able to maybe find the instructor that can maybe cover those. So.
Colleen does it, Colleen ISD does it through Colleen Fire Department. And it's worked out very well for them. And I actually referenced one of the lieutenants out there who's directed it, you know, how did you go about building this? And he gave me a lot of advice. So
this is something new that we're jumping into. That we'll
Any
figure it
more
all
questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. All right. Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you.
I think the EMS service is a lot like the fire service. You don't really appreciate them until you need them. And from that point forward, they're saints.
So the next piece will continue with Cornell Health EMS, but they have graciously offered to donate an ambulance to us. That's
gracious.
Approximately worth $5,000. So sometimes you might have a box or something where you're learning your skills in, but we would have an actual ambulance. And so we're recommending that the Board of Trustees approve the donation of an ambulance from Cornell Health EMS to use for our EMT program.
The motion?
Is there, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Got it.
Make the motion, seconded. Charles, any questions? I just want to say thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's a gracious offer, so.
Yeah. All in favor? Raise your hand. Okay, motion carries.
they are driving it.
They are driving, yeah. So I guess we'll sign it off sometime there soon.
Yes.
So Mr. Mincy wasn't able to make it tonight, but he's helped us. But Heather's done all the legwork, a lot of the legwork through this.
Can we just pull the box off of it and incorporate it into the new high school?
Save some square foot.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be.
I have it in the room.
I told him it's going to be my, I'm going to use it as my prom entrance.
Well, we want to thank you for what you're doing for our kids.
Yeah, thank y'all very much.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, thank you guys. That's
Thank
all
you all.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Appreciate you.
Yeah, same.
That's right.
Oh, we do have one.
Somebody needs nursing home.
Mr. Webb, you're back.
Now what do you want?
No.
More money.
Temple dual accredited classes?
Man, I get it when I walk in the office down the hall.
You have
They
never
run when they
come
see
before
me.
this board that you didn't want something.
I apologize.
Part of the job.
It's all in,
It's
to
usually
benefit our
worthwhile.
kids.
Somebody has to do it, huh?
Thank you.
That's right. I enjoy that part. The next part is Temple College. So we have the Temple College Bioscience Institute, and each year we have kids that if you're a junior or a senior, then you are eligible to apply for this program. And so what we've continued this, we've had this partnership for the past several years. And so where the kids go in, they take college level coursework at Temple College, mostly, math and science related courses. And so I'm just asking the board approve continue with the memorandum of understanding that we have with Temple College and the Temple Bioscience Institute, so that our kids can continue to take advantage of that. And I believe next year we have 2 students that are still enrolled in the program. And it comes out to about $150 per student. We have a fee that we pay for each student.
Is there a motion for this recommendation, David? Second? Linda? Any more questions? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Webb. You can come
That's
back
how you get rid of it.
That's right.
You're so good.
Mr. Frazier, Community Eligibility Program.
Okay. Some exciting things going on here at this district, aren't there?
There really is.
All right, so I'll direct you to pages 135 and 136 in the board book. And this is about the Community Eligibility Program, or provision of the National School Lunch Program. And the sheet on page 136 is a report that we generate once a year from this program, and it kind of gives you the eligibility percentages by our campus. Bridget is here tonight, and primary has now qualified and moved into the realm of let's do it. You basically have, it says that you have to have at least 40%, and you see on this sheet that primary is at 61%. So you have to have 40%, so there's 2 other campuses besides primary that are eligible, as you see with the X right there, but they're in the low 40s. And really until it gets to around 60 is it cost justifiable for us to do this. If we can do the community eligibility program next year at primary, basically we will be feeding all primary kids for free. That's breakfast and lunch. And we will be reimbursed at the free rate up to 98% of the participants. So we're almost at 100%. So we crunched the numbers, we have a little spreadsheet, and we determined if it's feasible for us to do this or not. And at this rate of 61%, it put us to where we can do this. And if we had no increase in participation whatsoever, we would basically break even at the primary campus. So there's no gain or loss to the school district on doing this. The gain would be for the parents at the primary, and we've estimated about 15,000 of lunch monies that they would save in their pocket by us going to this program in primary. And of course, what's going to happen is that other campuses are going to want to do it too. So we just have to take this 1 year at a time, and to see if we're eligible. If we can do it at these other 2 campuses that are eligible, but there will be a significant loss to the district. So it's not really cost justifiable for us to do anything other than just the primary at this time. Once you enter this program, you're making a 4-year commitment to do it this way. And one of the things is they will not fill out, parents will not fill out the typical free and reduced lunch application. There'll be a much simpler form that they'll fill out for us, and they won't be having to fill out the long form. So that's a good thing. Now, when the kiddos go to elementary, if elementary is still like it is now, they could be have to pay when they get to elementary. But this is while they're at the primary campus. So we visited with Bridget and Gail and Joyce Blanchard, went over the numbers. We had a lady from TDA that came over and crunched numbers with us also, and we saw the light. So like this year, let's do primary. So this is the first time that we've actually hit this number. So this is not something like we could have done this last year. So this is really the first opportunity that we have as a school district to join this program and to offer free meals 100% to all the students in that campus. So we'd like to present this to the board for your approval, that you go ahead and approve a recommendation to join this program for the primary campus next year and for the next 3 years after that. Any questions that you have? Gail's out of town. She might can answer some of them, but she's on training, and I told her I think I'll handle it for you, Gail.
Any questions?
You like the idea that it's not gonna cost us anything,
I
right?
think it's great.
And it's gonna put money in the pockets of the parents. You like that?
Good benefits for the kids.
Yeah, it's a no, it's a
And the other
win-win
campuses,
situation.
they still fill out the free and reduced lunch forms, elementary and intermediate.
Yeah, the rest of them will. But the primary will not.
Right.
I've never talked to a district that did this that wasn't happy that they took that step. I do know that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'm glad we're able to do it for our parents.
It's wonderful.
A lot of times they're younger families and, you know, they're barely making ends meet sometimes as they start out their life. And this will be a big help to them. Excited about it, Bridget?
I'm excited. I mean, we try and get as many kids in the cafeteria as we can. And so it's just like a peace of mind for some of those parents, some of those kids knowing that they can get, 2 square meals a day for sure when they're there. So it's just worth it.
Do you see some kids not being able to eat?
We try as much as possible, to get our kids in. I mean, in the mornings, if they come in late, the first question we ask, do you need breakfast? I mean, so if they show up, whether it's 8:10 or 9:10 or 10:10, we're gonna ask them if they need something to eat. So we're always trying to make sure that, because most of the time, if the kids are hungry, that's what they're thinking about, that they're hungry, not that they can't focus, they lose, they can focus on what they're really trying to learn, what they need to be doing. In addition to, you never know what they walked in coming from.
Yeah.
So, all of that plays into it.
It's a great program, but it's sad that we have to be so poor to qualify. It says something about our district. The economy or the whatever here, I don't know what drives it, but we see things where we get good grades for being great things, and here we're getting something for being low on the bottom,
It is what it is.
But it's good that it is there
Yeah,
for them.
it's good we can help our folks.
It's great.
The reason, actually, I was gonna mention that, how did it pop up to 60 at primary all of a sudden? And why wasn't it there last year? So there's a couple things Gil was telling me this morning. All pre-K automatically qualify, and all PPCD automatically qualify now, and that didn't used to be. And also now they have what they call the direct cert list that comes out where they gather information from all kinds of different sources. And this direct cert list is growing. And so there are folks that are getting eligibility through the direct cert list that are not like having to do the forms. And so we're getting more and more kiddos on that direct cert list that automatically come in and are already through other sources flagged as eligible. So that's the reason why we had 60 plus this year and we weren't there last year. So that was the question I had.
Mary, is this what you were telling me about, that they were having trouble getting parents to fill out papers? Because I think it was you about.
Well, we were sitting at a table at our conference where other districts were lamenting that very fact that they couldn't get the students to fill out the free reduced lunch form.
Yeah. For fear that parents would be investigated or looked at.
That's exactly what he said, yeah.
So I do pay attention.
And some parents are not willing to fill them out either. I mean,
Right.
like you're talking about, a lot of our
Class
parents
must
are
have
young
full
and
lunch.
almost get
I was at
themselves.
lunch with Barrett when we were talking about this.
Well, and as they go up the grades, the kids are much more reticent to get it done from their parents also.
So the big if is, how's it gonna impact participation? We would think that it would go up, obviously. And so a 10% increase in participation would yield about 10,000 gain for the school district. So if we don't go at all, no increase in participation, we break even. We go up maybe 10%, we make 10,000. So that's kind of what it's gonna look like. So we don't know until we delve into it and have a year experience to see what those participation numbers are gonna do. But I would suspect they're gonna go up.
Something else we need to advertise.
Yeah.
Oh, those parents will, some of them will be not real receptive at the beginning,
Mhm.
but as they hear from the other parents, they'll
Right.
begin to soften.
Right, well, we'll have a marketing campaign, I guess you want to put it, how we're gonna get word out. you know, to the families.
But it's pretty simple, isn't it? It's free for everybody.
That gets out pretty quick, doesn't it?
You don't have to sell that one.
Well, if you can fill the stomachs of 3, 4, and 5, and 6-year-olds,
Yeah.
they're gonna learn a lot more.
So another good thing, you know, going on here at GISD. So if your approval, we want to go ahead and do this.
Okay,
If
you've
you are
heard the
good for it.
excuse me, I'm sorry, Ms. Brady. You've heard the recommendation, is there a motion? Rob, second, Charles, any more questions? All those in favor? Motion carries,
Okay,
thank you, Mr.
that's
Brady.
exciting.
Good job.
Okay.
And you get to
For
come back up.
who all's involved, good job.
Interlocal.
It's you again.
Stu, you're up.
Oh,
Tim.
yeah, that's
Interlocal.
Okay, these are,
He's gonna do this.
I was ready to clock out here. Okay, so the next one has to do with the TIPS program, page 137 and 138. So this is one of those purchasing co-ops. There's several purchasing co-ops around the state that we use from time to time, and this is one. Most frequently used actually by the technology department. But it used to be under the auspices of Region 4 out of Houston. And now this TIPS program falls under a different regional service center, which is Region 8 in Mount Pleasant. So they have asked us to sign a new agreement with Region 8, and then for the board to approve a resolution approving membership in this purchasing program, and also approving the interlocal agreement, which starts on page 139 of your board book. So it's just pretty simple. If you have any questions, but you know, this is oftentimes a good thing to get good pricing. And if you ever have a need to maybe avoid a bid, you can also, as long as it's on a buy board or a purchasing co-op, you can avoid the bid process as well, because they actually have gone through bids to get on there to begin with. So it's a good thing, and we do utilize it from time to time to our benefit. So we highly recommend that we go ahead and approve the agreement, and that the board approve this resolution to join this co-op, purchasing co-op.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Linda, is there a second? David, any more questions? All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, motion carries, thank you. And Mr. Frazier, I don't guess you get to sit down.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit down for a while. I learned my lesson. Can't believe I sat down there. All right, page 142. This next item has to do with the textbook account. This is one of our investments, and in the consent agenda was your quarterly investment report that we give to you, and in there you will see the textbook investment has somewhere around $700,000, I believe, in it. And we need a new board resolution since we have a new superintendent, and Dr. Barry Pollard. And so we need your approval of a board resolution naming Dr. Pollard as an authorized representative on the textbook account, and then Joyce Blanchard, my assistant, on the view only. Okay, she's like, she does bank reconciliations. This will give her the authorization to go in and actually view, not make any transactions. So that's what we recommend that you approve. And there's a formal resolution starting on page 143 and 144 that will need to be signed tonight, and we'll send it on to tech school. Tech school's actually come up in their rates. You know, I've been following those on those quarterly investment reports. It's pretty nice. They're up now, very close to what we're getting from our bank, which is pretty impressive. That they were trailing pretty good in the previous times.
All right, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? Who was first? John? And then seconded, David? Okay. Are any more questions? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? No? Okay, motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier.
My last item for the evening has to do with investments again, and this is it's part of the board policy CDA local, where the board approves the investment officers for the school district. And those are typically the superintendent and myself as CFO. And again, with the change in the superintendency, we would like to do a new resolution appointing Dr. Pollard and myself as the district's investment officers. So,
All right,
we
you've heard the
recommend approval of that.
recommendation. Is there a motion? Rob, second? Linda, any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries, thank you.
Now, Barrett just goes for training as one of our investment officers now. I know he's looking forward to that.
I hear junk bonds are good.
Can we reconsider? Thank you, board.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Now we will, take a short break before we start our executive session under Texas Government Code 551.001 and 551.074 at 7:57, Marcy? Okay, thank you for coming.